Egunon, sail ofizialeko Le Weekend filma ikusi dugu, eta orain egingo dugu prentsaurrekoa. Buenos días.
Good morning. We're going to hold the press conference corresponding to the film Le Weekend of the official section. We've got with us the director, Roger Mitchell, the actress and actor Lindsay Duncan and Jim Broadbent. We also have the scriptwriter Hanif Qureshi and the producer Kevin Lauder, and they're eagerly awaiting for your first questions. So first question, here in the first row, please, quite quickly. Microphone, please. Yes, good morning. I would like to ask the question to both of the actors. First of all, welcome to all of you. And I've seen there was a lot of, it was very natural the way you carried out, you portrayed your characters. And how did you go that far? I thought that people that were very natural and very close to the audience while watching you. How did you manage to do that when you were portraying your roles?
It all comes from the writing, and that it was. I think we felt we were quite well cast.
Yes, we thought we were the best people for the job. And also, it is true that it comes from the script. I mean, the characters are there, and the tone of the film was relatively easy to achieve because it was a very relaxed working situation. And
yeah, it was a very light crew, and we moved around Paris very quickly and very easily. And by and large, it was shot, compared to most films, in story order. The first shot we did in the film was on the train going to Paris, and almost the last thing we did was the scene in the cafe, wasn't it? So it felt like a very organic experience, the whole Parisian journey.
I agree.
Más preguntas, por favor.
Further questions, please.
Why did you portray a character so visibly on the left of the political spectrum? Is there a reason for that?
Who's that for the writer?
That's right.
For whoever it is, I mean, probably for Mr. Qureshi. These were lefties, clearly, so I was wondering why they were left. Why did you choose lefties and not, say, Thatcherites? Go figure.
Well, I don't know any Thatcherites. I don't think I've ever met a Thatcherite. If I'd met one, I would have put him or her in the film. And many of my friends, indeed Roger, is I guess what you would describe as a lefty. So having spent or indeed wasted my life amongst radicals, leftists, Maoists, Trotskyites, it seemed to me that the time was absolutely right to put them in a film. And the bitterness and disillusionment that we've all suffered from seemed to me to be perfect for the contemporary cinema.
And there's a lot in the film as well about, fairly obviously, about a long relationship, a long intimate relationship, and inevitably you start with ideals and hopes, as maybe we all did politically way back in the 60s, and you find that you've lost sight of some of those, or you know there's disappointment in yourself, in your relationship, and yeah, I think that. So there's a broader landscape at the same time as the intimate one of the relationship.
Yeah, that's good.
Preguntas, por favor.
Further questions?
Sí, ahí atrás del todo.
Right at the back there seems to be a question, yes? Congratulations for the film. The truth is at the back at the left. It's the best film I've seen so far, by the way, in the film festival. And a question to the couple, shall we say, the two actors. The truth, was it very difficult during the shoot, those dialogues, which were just fantastic, by the way, that you've carried out. Was it easy to do that? And the actress, for example, I wouldn't have left so early, by the way. I don't know whether referring to you leaving him in the film, or I don't know what he's referring to there. He's left it in the air. So the dialogues, they were so natural, so easy.
Good. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that is, as we said earlier, that it's the writing. And if you're comfortable with the writing and you believe in it, and you know, we'd obviously we'd been through the screenplay for maybe 5 short days, hadn't we, before we started shooting?
You read it before you started?
Read it, yeah. Most of it. The point is, I suppose, to try and feel as truthful as you possibly can. I mean, that's what you're aiming for.
Sí, ahí en la primera fila.
First row, yes, another question.
Hi, my question is for the director. I was wondering while I was watching the movie if you were using the couple doing funny things and they were running around all the time and it was really fun, but at some point it looked kind of depressing because they were trying so hard to get along again and they weren't able to do it. And I wanted to really to know if you were actually using that or not, or if it was just me. Maybe you were just trying to make it fun and that was it, and the other thing was my impression.
No, I think it's the other way around. We were trying to make it miserable, and the fun thing is all your own misconception. I think we were trying to make a portrait of a marriage which includes the light and the dark. And what's particular about this story is that the light and the dark follow upon each other very, very swiftly, as in a real relationship, not even necessarily a relationship which has lasted 30 years and more. So the idea that within a marriage, as Jeff's character says, you can be angry and loving within 5 minutes of your partner is very much one of the theses of the oddness of the behaviour that we were trying to depict. So that contrast was intentional. Yeah.
¿Hay alguna pregunta más, por favor?
Any further questions? I would like to ask a question, by the way. Over here on the left, I've heard a couple of journalists saying influences of Godard. I'm not too sure if such is the case, or whether you can really, whether the directors have used any influences by Godard, the director. They didn't ask him, but I've heard a couple of journalists ask that question between themselves this morning. So that's why I thought I'd ask it.
The spirit of the new wave infects the film in several ways. The new wave would have been the films that our characters watched when they were young, when they were students, when they were full of fighting spirit. And of course the film references a film by Godard, The Band Apart. Is a film that they catch a glimpse of in their hotel suite. And the film ends with a sort of apologetic, affectionate nod towards Godard. So yes, of course, the film is smothered in Godard.
Preguntas, por favor.
Further questions, please? Yes? Here in I think it's the third row.
Hola, enhorabuena.
Hi, congratulations. I would like to know why the film, why did you choose Paris, that location, to having both main characters, this re-encounter, shall we say, once again with Paris? Why choose Paris?
Obviously, in England, a trip to Paris is much easier than a trip to San Sebastian or other romantic venues in Europe, because we can go on the train. And so that's become a very common event for couples to go for a romantic weekend. And obviously Paris is the city of light and is the most famously romantic city in the world. So it's a wonderful counterpoint to the bickering and misery that is endured by this dysfunctional couple.
It's become almost a cliche, hasn't it,
Yeah,
to represent
it has,
romance.
yeah.
And that's where they started. So they have to go back.
Hello, hi. I have a question to Mr. Hanif Qureshi, because I think one of the best point of this brilliant movie is the script. So I want to ask to Mr. Qureshi about how do you deal with this kind of material, because everybody knows about your literature and your books. I remember one of your first book adapted to the cinema, My Beautiful Laundrette, and was different subject. And I think in this film, a part of brilliant stereotype, because a stereotype could be brilliant too, there is a special sincerity, a special spirit dealing with this generation, with this 60 and 70. It's not only good dialogues, there is more. There is something deep, in my opinion. So can you tell us about your work with the script?
Well, I think you're right. It's been a long journey from gay skinheads and in laundrettes to white heterosexuals in Paris. But I think after Roger and I and Kev did The Buddha of Suburbia, we got interested with The Mother and also with Venus in making films, and telling stories about older people. It seemed to me that there weren't enough films about older people and their lives, as our lives, it seemed to become more interesting as we got older. And most films are about young people, it seems to me, falling in love. So most of us live in or have been part of relationships that have gone on for ages. And that seemed much more interesting to me and to Roger. What is it really like to be with someone for 20 years? And why would you be with them? And what's going on between the two of you that makes it worthwhile? And then your kids grow up and they leave and you're left with this person and you think, why should I be with this person? What do we have now between us? Should we go and do something else? Or if we can stay together, what would be the reason? And it seemed to me that marriage, is the central subject, certainly, of the novel. The central question in Western culture. And the whole idea of marriage has certainly changed during my lifetime. When I was a kid, everybody was married and they just stayed married and that was that. I was looking at pictures the other day of my 40th birthday party at which Roger was present. And I looked round the table at all the people there and not one of those couples is still together in those photographs. So
we're the only couple.
Yeah, actually, it's only me and Roger actually who are still speaking to one another after all those years. So these questions, why would people be together? What is between them after so long? What are they doing? Seems to me to be really important questions that the cinema should address, and where possible, humorously.
Buenos días.
Good morning. Good morning. There are people who say, "Gee, bro, you could be Juliette Delpy and another actor. I think both of the actresses of the Performing Night or the Linklater Trilogy. I don't know. There's a comparison of a future continuation of the Linklater Trilogy, and both of you could be the actors doing that. Both of you. What do you think of that remark that's been made by these people?"
What a good idea.
We franchise like Lord of the Rings. Yeah, we're going to do Lost Weekend next, which we could possibly do in San Sebastian.
Trilogy, whether they'll stay together long enough to do a third film.
We certainly had a lovely time making the film, so we'd be very keen to try and reproduce the way we made the film. It was an absolute joy of a month in Paris. So to make a film like that was a very intimate and, as Lindsay said, organic experience, really.
I haven't seen those Richard Linklater films. Is that his name? But other people have mentioned this film in relation to that. I thought of this film as being much more like a sort of Woody Allen film, but with jokes.
Aquí en la fila.
Hi, good morning. I would like to ask both of the actors what attracted you most to your characters, and if there's anything of you in each of those characters that you'll portray. Thank you very much.
I think what attracted me to the whole piece was that there's loads in both the characters that I identified with. I mean, almost equally as much in Meg. I could hear myself saying Meg's lines, or I could hear myself saying Nick's lines. There's so much recognition in the whole piece. I think this is so true, and so I can sympathise and empathise with both these characters all the way through. And it's when you get that, it's irresistible. You know, you think it's so rare that you can really identify with a character to that extent.
And of course it's even more unusual to be offered a really substantial part for a woman of my age. You know, and we're going to shoot it in Paris. You could only say yes. But it's exactly what Jim says, but more for a woman, because it's getting slightly better, but it's still really unusual to be sharing a film with a man.
But also, reading the script, I could, every line of Meg's, I could imagine and hear Lindsay doing it in my head. And that was, and we'd worked together before. We played a husband and wife on television a few years ago, and so that was always going to be fun. I knew that element was going to be delightful, and it was.
Any more questions, please?
Any further questions? Yes, it seems.
Question for Mr. Lola. First of all, congratulations on the very elegant cameo in the first scene. But is it you and Roger and Hanif have a track record, obviously, of making films together, but is it easier within the context of the British film industry or whatever to get films like this made, which clearly aren't going to be broadly multiplex material?
Well, yes, I mean, this is the fourth project that Hanif and Roger and I have done together. One was television, and then the previous two films, The Mother and Venus. I mean, I suppose we're always kind of cooking a project, however slowly. And this film was made very cheaply. I mean, we made this film, as we've already referred to, in a very kind of small crew. We shot it in 21 days. It cost probably less than 2 million euros, the budget of this film. So we did this film really as a labour of love to some extent. And I think because we were prepared to work in that very small way, we found that it wasn't that hard to raise the money, but we obviously got support from Film 4, who have made a lot of films with us, and from the BFI, and from Curzon, who are really known in Britain as a distributor as much as a financier of the films. But you know, it was a very neat kind of fit between those parties. I mean, the British film industry at the moment seems to be producing, you know, a lot of very interesting and engaging work on a variety of scales. So I think we just keep plugging away doing the work we want to do, and so far we've been allowed to do it. But you know, long may it continue. But it feels like every time you're starting a new business and having to kind of go back and start all over again to some extent. But I think we've been lucky.
Another question to Roger Mitchell. What about the casting of Jeff Goldblum? Because I think it's absolutely brilliant. I am so happy to see him back at work.
Yeah.
And
we were all happy.
I think it's really the right man to do this part of this kind of not cynical, but the man that lost illusion and still dreams, and imbalance between Europe and United States is absolutely different from other stereotypes you quoted Woody Allen, but we've seen countless bad movies about Americans in Paris and like this. So it was your first choice, or what happened with him?
Yes, we're hoping that in the sequel it opens with our couple meeting Jeff Goldblum, but now he's a drunk. He's been kicked out of his house. He's living in a cardboard box, a very big cardboard box. Jeff, I did a film with Jeff a couple of years ago, and got to know him and like him very much. And we ended up sort of writing this for Jeff, as you can probably feel. And he leapt to the chance of coming and making a tiny film in Paris. He was only with us for 3 days. It felt like weeks. He's such a strong colour and flavour, wasn't he? And he came at the end of our shoot, so he gave us all a big pick up. And he's great fun. He's everything he does with full enthusiasm. He came to my house because he wanted to get used to little children. He's thinking of having children. So he came with his girlfriend to experiment with little children. And,
See what they were like.
He spent 3 hours putting my 4-year-old girl to bed, reading her story after story. So when she grows up, she'll watch Jurassic Park and she'll suddenly freak out and go, "Oh my God, you frightened of the dinosaur? No, who's that guy? Who's that guy?" But he's a really special guy. We're all very fond of him.
Galderarik bai?
Any further questions? If everyone's satisfied, thank you very much for all of you. Thank you.